Introducing Blackie Lawless of W.A.S.P. Are you just an ordinary guy?
I was till I got to be about, I was normal, or whatever normal was supposed to be, till I got to be about 12. And then I decided that I wanted to experiment. And got a little funky after that, you know. I mean, I cost my father a lot of money in and out of court. Vandalizing things, you know, the usual, just excessive amounts of it. And it cost me 1.5 years in military school.
Was that your parents' idea?
Well, it damn sure wasn't mine, you know. I mean, I was constantly giving them little presents, you know, like notices to appear. And I give my mother I got stabbed on Mother's Day, 1970. That was a great present from Mom. She enjoyed that. A Puerto Rican with a roofing knife. And I had a brother who was worse than me. It made me look like nothing. By the time he was 15, he had been in one of these reformatories 4 times. By the time he was 15, he had robbed a hardware store, stole a car. He's now the service department manager of the largest Chevrolet dealership in the United States. Well, we've both done okay for ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. How do you write your lyrics?
Sometimes it pains me when things I do. See, I write lyrics to entertain myself because I think they're funny. I always try to do them with a good deal of humor. Keeps them from being boring, makes them multi-dimensional. And sometimes it pains me when the controversy at times overshadows the real content of what's going on. That bothers me sometimes, but you know, I mean, it's supposed to be like a 3D picture where you hold it at one angle and you see one thing, you tilt it a little bit the other way and you see something else. And that's what I've always tried to do in everything that I ever wrote. So the more educated people can, I always like to think that a lot of it is satire. You look at something like Gulliver's Travels and you think that it's sheer fantasy when in reality it's about government.
Do you have musical training?
I started playing drums when I was 8 and I did that for about 2 months and my parents decided I was not going to be a drummer. And I mean, it's just awful. If you've ever sit and listen, I don't care how good the drummer is, to sit and listen and just pound away just hour after, it's like, stop it, you know. So my brother had a guitar, and I used to sneak in his bedroom and play it. And I got my own when I turned 9, and I started playing. It was self-taught. A friend of mine down the street that tuned it for me, and it stayed in tune miraculously for about 6 months. You know, so I just started putting my fingers down whenever it sounded good. That's what I played. So my dad finally talked me into going and buying a book. About 3 months later, and lo and behold, those things that I had been thought sounded good turned out to be chords. If you look at the best bass players, they were all ex-guitar players. You know, Entwistle, McCartney, all of those guys. They played. See, the problem is with guitar players is you think like a guitar player, and bass players a lot of times want to do things that. They want to overplay it when it doesn't need to be overplayed, and they underplay it when it should have a little more to it. And the secret to playing heavy rock bass is knowing when not to play. You've got to play it pretty simple. You got to play with a kick drum.
You were in a low-budget film some years ago.
It was originally called Rage War, and then they changed the title of it to Dungeon Master, and it was like just awful. You know, I mean, it was just terrible. It's largely, I would imagine, because of our participation in it, because what we did, and it's actually pretty good. We did the clip that we used to do in the old show, Tormentor, where the girl was on the rack and all that stuff. So. And in actuality, there's a guy who's a big TV star in America, is the devil in the movie, and him and I are one and the same person. You don't find that out until later in the movie, so it's kind of interesting. The special effects are really great. It's just the storyline was crap. You know, well, the storyline was good. It's just the way it turned out to be bad. It could have been so much more than it was.
You weren't really big at the time, were you?
See, in Los Angeles, or in California in general, had been playing up and down the coast. We were selling out 3,000-seat arenas in California without any kind of, not even an independent record out. We were doing places like a little bit smaller than Hammersmith, and like I said, selling them out. And I'll tell you how that came about. They did a big feature on the band in the entertainment section of the Sunday Los Angeles Times. And it's like, where did this band come from and how are they doing the things that they're doing when here were label acts with heavy support behind them that couldn't do a third of what we were doing. And we had already been on the cover of 4 international major magazines and things like that. So the producers had a lawyer who was working for them at the time, who ended up working for us, no longer works for us, got a hold of me and called me up and asked me if I wanted to do this movie. At that time, we had 4 different movie scripts offered to us at the time. It's a perfect opportunity to intercept scripts and things like that. I just turned one down that I know I'm going to live to regret, but there was just no time to do it. It's a movie that'll be out next month called Trick or Treat. It's offered the lead role of the guy who's the rock and roll singer, supposed to be like the devil. And there was just no time to do it. I mean, Dino De Laurentiis is doing this movie, $20 million budget. It's a serious movie. Whether it's going to be any good or not, I mean, he made King Kong too, and that flopped, and it cost him $50, you know, but for that kind of dough, you know, you figure that something serious is going to come out of it. In America, where the biggest audience now is demographically is our target audience for records. I mean, it really does make sense if you can find some rock and rollers that have a flair, you know, for doing this. Yeah, and Gene's making the transition quite well, actually, and that's what I want to do, because I turned 30 3 weeks ago. I mean, I can do this for 10 more years as long as I take care of myself, but I do want to make the transition gracefully. I don't want to get to the point where it's like, you know, the records aren't happening or the tours aren't happening anymore. You know, you got to prepare for that before it happens, I think.
How do you stand with the moral majority?
It started about 1.5 years ago, and the record companies did not take it serious. I mean, even I didn't take it serious. It was kind of like a giant that was sleeping, and it's like the giant was being prodded, but it wasn't woken up yet. It was still hibernating. Well, they've woken it up now. And what the recording industry has done is sent a committee of 6 people to live in Washington, D.C., because the IRAA was not doing enough to suit us. IRAA really has taken a very soft stance on it. This organization will live there now and be a permanent addition to combat things like that do happen. I mean, last year, there was a sticker on the record. There's another one on there this year, but there's something the stickers were on the actual cellophane. When you pull the cellophane off, it comes off. This year on the back of the record, there's a little teeny blurb down at the bottom of the record that says, parental guidance, explicit lyrics, or something like that. I mean, that pissed me off, and I didn't see that until today. I mean, that I don't like. You know, you start cluttering up the record. I mean, on the cellophane, that's one thing, you rip that off. When it's on the actual jacket itself, that I'm really aggravated about. I didn't find it frightening, I found it to be a joke. Now I'm pissed. That's the extension of the moral majority. That's the portion of the moral majority that has been designated to look after music. America is no different than Britain or the Soviet Union or places like that. You have 200 ruling families. It's the royalty, just like it is here. And it's hard to buck that system. Probably the biggest difference that Britain and America have over the Soviet Union is that if you make enough noise, you can get someone to listen to you, which is really the saving grace that keeps both of our democracies afloat. It's not to the point where it's censorship yet, but I am, in the last month, have gotten more concerned about it than I was when it first started happening. I thought it was a joke before, and I really did get quite a good laugh out of it. But I mean, these folks aren't going away. I don't see it getting any worse. It's just, when it was a joke, that was fine. I didn't take it seriously, and I figured it'd go away. You know what it's like? It's like this spot on your leg, and you don't think it's a big deal. It's not getting any bigger, but it's not going away either. And it's like, whoa, let me keep an eye on this thing. And that's exactly what the recording industry is doing. It's like, it's not gone away like we thought it would. Is it going to get bigger? And if it is, I'm definitely going to take care of it. I'm going to squash it. I mean, I don't really think it's music that they're after, because if you look at the McCarthyism thing that came down in the 50s, that was not about movie stars. It wasn't really about communism. It was a political platform for him to gain profile, to then move on to something else. And I still don't believe you have have seen what these people are after yet. They're just using rock and roll as a soapbox to stand on, to go like this, to wave their arms and say, hey, we exist. I have no idea what they're after. I fail to believe it's rock and roll. It can't be that simple.
Have you always made money?
To tell you the truth, you're talking about making money. There was only a very short time that we did not make money. We set records, financial records at the Troubadour that will never be broken. For what it was at the time, I mean, there was a 3-night stand. We played there one time. We made $10,000. And that, you're talking about a club that's legal capacity is 290. We were putting 700 a night in there and charging $10 a head. Yeah. So, I mean, and plus we set records for alcohol. On a Friday night they did $6,200 in alcohol, and the next night, no, $6,300, and the next night they did $7,200. And for a 2-night stand, I mean, no one will ever break those records. You know, we used to have this sign too that used to light up fire, you know, and it'd get incredibly hot in that room. And I used to use that sign as a literally a weapon against club owners, you know, because the word got out what kind of business we did with alcohol, you know. And I'd say, well, in the Troubadour, the most anyone had ever gotten was 60% of the door. I went in and one time I demanded 80%, and I thought they were going to have a heart attack. And then we got it, and then the last time we ever played there, I demanded 100% of the door, and I thought they were going to have a stroke. And we got it, and then I pulled the ultimate stroke of all time. I asked them for part of the concessions of the bar, and no club owner will, you just don't do that. They might break on the door, but you will not touch their alcohol, I don't care who you are. And that's it, you've gone too far this time. They threatened to pull the gigs, and I go, oh, it's okay. I knew I was pushing it, you know. The door, I knew I could get all of it. It doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, you know. Well, I reckon at this point, I know in America we're in the top 15. Europe, maybe the top 20. We're knocking on the door where the object is to get into the top 10, you know, and then that's serious. I mean, Britain at this point, yes, we have arrived where you're talking about, but Europe as a whole, Scandinavia, we could headline 10,000 seaters right now. But Southern Europe, we would not be able to play the size places that we would be here in Britain and Scandinavia, because we just haven't been into Italy, we haven't been into Spain yet and stuff, so it would be better. I mean, we're getting everything we want on the Maiden Tour. You know, we're getting 20 feet of room, all PA, all lights, getting to the whole show, you know, so it really doesn't matter. I mean, we're not losing anything off it. So it makes sense to go back there and support this time, because next year when we come back, we'll headline all those places. We headline, we go back to America this year. We've been headlining in Japan since day one. So if we're anywhere off the beaten track, it's only an eyelash away.
Do you enjoy the Hollywood life?
I mean, it depends on where you live. I mean, I don't live actually in Hollywood. I live a little bit north of there. And this coming summer, I'm going to be moving even further north of there, about 30 minutes outside the city. And that's 30 minutes on the freeway. So it's about 20 miles north. And it's a little ranch type place. And it's very woodsy. It's, you know, that's like the epitome of California lifestyle. Like, everything's a ranch. It don't matter what it is. You can live right in the heart of Hollywood. I got a little spread. I live about 40 acres, you know. The BL of rock and roll.
How did you get started with Capitol Records? And was your image there right from the start?
The first demo that we did had I Want to Be Somebody, Love Machine, Hellion, School Days, On Your Knees, Sleeping in the Fire. That was our demo, you know? And it's like, that's why we were drawing the crowds we were. The image and all that stuff came later.
Thank you. Blackie Lawless of W.A.S.P.